Hello, Rob. Great to see you again. I'm Dimitris calling from Chicago and Metalkaoz. How are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and you look great. Love the purple glasses. No, the glasses. I'm talking about the glasses.
Yeah, I've been
So,
wearing these. I've been wearing these for a while now. I like them.
yeah, it makes, it brings some of the 70s a flair of the 70s, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will start. I am sure you have answered this before. What was the motivation to play the entire Dark Parade live?
Well, that's a good question, and I have a good answer for that. Uh, Ever since we've been putting out records, we never ever were able to play a whole album live. I think
Mhm.
maybe back in the day when King of the Dead came out, we probably played that at one of our shows because we only had another album, Frost and Fire, before that. But we always put out records and we always want to play the whole album, but we never have the opportunity. So at this live at the Roxy show, we got the opportunity to play the whole album in its entirety, and it was a really unique thing. We've never really done that before, and I thought it was amazing, and I thought it came off really good. I was kind of sick that night. I had like a really bad case of the flu. That's during COVID, so I don't really know what was going on, but uh, I was kind of not in the best shape physically, but I thought my drums came out really good, and I thought the recording came out good and the video. So I think it was a pretty successful uh, show altogether.
Sorry, you were not feeling well, and you pulled out 2 hours of a concert.
Yeah, I've done that before. We played in London recently last year, and a cymbal stand fell over on stage and almost chopped my arm off. I still have a scar.
Dude,
uh,
man. Wow.
and then I played the next night somewhere. Like I was worried that I'd start bleeding on stage, so I wrapped my arm up really good. So,
Did you get
hey, if
stitches?
what's that?
Did you get stitches in your hand?
No, no. I probably needed them. No one in the band or anyone that was with us saw it, but the people at the club saw it. We played at I think the Underworld in Camden, and a really kind of a famous club. We played there before. It was really kind of cool. Uh, and some of the people that worked there, they saw what happened. They ran over and they went and got a big first aid kit. Everyone was looking at it. No one knew what to do. So I grabbed a couple of bandages and I just wrapped them up. And
Oh my goodness. We,
that's live rock and roll.
I agree, but yeah, come on. You should stay safe as much as possible. um, However, playing an entire album live is not something that bands usually do, because usually what they are doing is just play maybe two, three songs, and then the rest is same old, same old. So that was a really, to my mind, a really bold move.
Well, you're right. And that's kind of what we do normally. But I'll let you know how this whole thing came about. We put the new album out. Matter of fact, several people at Metal Chaos picked it when it came out in 2023 as one of the top 10 albums or the top album of the year. And so I really love your publication because I have some fond memories of some of the stuff that you guys have written about us in the past.
And I love
Um,
you for that. An extra love for that. Thank you for saying that.
okay. Well, yeah, no, that's true. Uh, so anyway, we had the album out. Once again, this is the tail end of the pandemic, and a lot of stuff was messed up and everything. And I think the record company said, why don't you guys, have an album release party? And Jarvis, our bass player and manager, they were talking about it, saying, "What do you guys think about this?" We thought it was a really good idea, and we played at the Roxy, I think 1984 or so, and we videotaped that. Not a very professional one, but kind of like a homemade video. And so the thought was, hey, if we're going to have an album release party, let's film it, record it for a live album, maybe make a video. And that's kind of how the whole thing came about. And so it was kind of based on the whole idea of having an album release party for Dark Parade. And so, you can't have a party for someone and the person doesn't show up to the party.
Right. Makes sense. Love it. So you said you have footage from the show 40 years ago?
Yeah, when the band got back together in around 2015, Metal Blade released a bunch of our albums on a deluxe edition. And when they released King of the Dead right here, inside the CD or the DVD thing, there was actually a video of our show at the Roxy.
Oh,
If
I
you get a
didn't.
chance, you probably have one. Someone has one floating around. You can look at it, and it's not really well done. Back in the day, we never had really good videos of the band. And that's so funny. The MTV, the whole
Mm.
video thing that went on, and all the bands did the videos. This video for Dark Parade was the only and the first professional video the band's ever had in our career. And so, we're watching it, and we're pretty amazed because we've never had anything that was done really fancy. So back then at the Roxy, what would happen? Someone would have like a big VHS camera set up on a tripod, and you'd give them a tape and $20 or something, and they'd film it, but it would just be one camera, and had a little microphone on it. We had two videos from back in the day. One was at the country club, and it sounded good and looked bad. And the one that was at the Roxy looked good but sounded bad. But I also had a cassette tape that they made off the mixing console. And so when they released that album or re-released King of the Dead, I had a local friend in town who actually put the video together with the cassette soundtrack. So it came out pretty good.
Wow, that's a lot of work, especially converting analog to digital can be a scary process because you may destroy the tape, right?
Yeah, well, actually, this was all the the cassette tape, was just a cassette tape, and the
Sure.
video thing, was just transferred to digital. And you got to remember, these weren't very high quality. We're not talking about 4K
Oh, we didn't
or high
know.
definition. You're talking about like 1980 VHS tape, So we're more worried about the thing, coming unscrewed or falling apart.
My goodness. However, that show 40 years ago, you had Jim on the lineup.
Well, actually, back then, no, that was really long time ago. We had Jerry, our original guitarist. So it was me playing drums, Tim, our singer,
So he wrote.
Jerry, our guitarist, and Mike, who was our bass player at the time, Flint. So that was the original four guys. Greg, after Frost and Fire was released, he was our original bass player and one of the founding members. He left the band after Frost and Fire came out. And so about the time we played at, I think it was like maybe 1984 or so at the Roxy, that was when our album King of the Dead, this one right here, came out. And so those were some of the original members. And we've gone through, a few members over the years. And what I think every different version of the band's been amazing. And I think we're just kind of whoever's there. I always tell people, if you go to a dance, you dance with who's at the dance. You don't dance with the girl you dreamed about last night. You dance with who you're with, right? And so that's what the band does. Whoever shows up, is in the band, and that's
What you just said holds so much wisdom, not only for music and bands, but for other things too, right?
well, I'm not sure about that, but I have a lot of experience thinking about it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So how much post-recording work was done?
Well, that a lot of people always say that some guy on YouTube, when our last album came out, our last live album, I think it's I'm Alive. That's what it was called. And I think it's right behind me if I lean over. Well,
Yep.
no, it's over here. It's this one right there. Okay, there's a YouTube video, and a guy's watching it, and he goes like this. He goes, "These guys sound fantastic, but look at that drummer. He doesn't even know how to play. This was all re-recorded or overdubbed or whatever." And my playing style, even when I watch it, it's not so bad on this the new album and the video. But most videos of me, it looks like I'm playing in slow motion. And when I'm playing, it doesn't seem like I am. But when I watch it back, it looks like I'm doing this really weird, slow. And so I think my videotaping me playing drums is probably not the best thing because I don't think it looks good. So anyway, the point of this guy was saying, this sounds amazing, but it looks horrible, so that can't be real. And I normally don't do this, but I actually went on YouTube and I said, well, it's exactly real because we couldn't afford to pay anyone to overdub another drum thing on top of that. So,
You
uh,
actually responded to the video?
yeah.
I'm
Well,
impressed.
so to be honest about the new album, there was very little post production on that. Uh, we got it back, and matter of fact, the drums, I was amazed because I'm really critical. I'm overly critical of every performance of the band, especially my own performances. And that night, I thought I played really good. I mean, I nailed almost everything that I wanted to do, and there's only one or two little things that not really messed up, just one or two things that I wish I would have done a little bit differently. But I was really happy with it, and we got it in the studio, and everything sounded really good. Now once again, some people saying, "Well, it looks like the singer, his voice is off," or when I'm watching the thing, it looks like the guitars are off a little bit too. Um, and that's the essence of like the video, that we're working with, and we actually don't have $1 million budget like some other bands. So, we're doing the best we can with what we got. And the group that actually videotaped this is a really famous uh, company. And I think they did a really good job. But, you're going to always see some little things. Like every once in a while, it looks like I'm watching a guitarist and it looks like you don't see him exactly hit every note, what he's doing. But you can trust me, everything that was played that night ended up on the video and the album.
So let me be clear. I didn't challenge the quality of you guys playing live. I only asked because sometimes, even though the technology has improved, sometimes there are mishaps. I don't know, a microphone buzzing or something else. So this is what I was looking for with my question. Because to be honest with you, Rob, a live performance cannot be perfect, and this is why it makes it special. Because when I see a band like Cirith Ungol, I want to have something special. Even that means that Rob misses one hit or he thinks he missed something. The next person, the next day, he will not see the same performance, right? And that's special. So whatever you guys put on the record, on the video, is a capture of that time, end of the day, and that's what is special.
Yeah. And like I said, I was surprised that I played that well because when I was playing that night, and I think maybe because I wasn't feeling very good, and so I was focusing just on the music, and we just come off of writing that album, and we were just so proud of it, and to be able to play it live was kind of like a dream come true.
Oh yeah,
Matter
yeah.
of fact, we could talk about this a little bit later, but we're working on some new material right now.
Mm.
And Tim always says, "Well, why do we keep putting out album after album if we can't go out and play the whole thing live?" And that goes back to what your question is like. We got to play Dark Parade live, so maybe if we release another album, we'll get to go out and maybe play. We'll have another album release party and get to play the whole album. So
I love that idea already. So it's been recorded what you said. So careful. So as you said, you played the entire thing live. How much did you rehearse in order, because those songs were very fresh? How much did you guys rehearse to get the stress out of your mind for playing the entire thing live?
well, I wish we could rehearse more than we actually do. Um, but for that show, I think we get together a couple of times a week, either work on new material or practice what we were doing. But we just finished recording that whole album, and you mentioned something about Jimmy. Jimmy just left the band. Uh, it's really kind of sad because we've lost a couple of members recently, and it wasn't anything that uh, we thought that there's no future forward, and that's kind of why we did this whole final tour last year. We thought, hey, the band's kind of over. And Jimmy left the band right before we were going to do this live at the Roxy show. And we actually thought about just breaking up. Me and Tim called Jarvis and said, hey, we've had a good run. We just had this great album out. Let's just cancel the show. And he goes, we got video recorders coming and we got the studio booked and everything. And so he goes, we got to do this, And so Armand, who's the Night Demon with Jarvis, I think we all looked at him and he's all like, hey man, I'm already in another band. I got other stuff going on. He owns a recording studio where we did our last three project, Witch's Game, Forever Black, and Dark Parade. And this album too, we finished up, got it all mixed down good there. So, but I think he realized, hey, hey, I'll go do this and see what happens. And it's kind of like how the band got back together. When we first got back together this last time, we said, well, hey, look, we'll do one or two shows and see how it goes. But as we started doing them, we started having more fun, and the crowd seemed to like it, and it was a really positive experience. And so we kept on kind of like a snowball rolling down the hill. And I think the same thing happened with Armand after we did this show at the Roxy. It came off so well. He's all like, well, I'll play a few more shows with you, and we did that. And a lot of times we're on the road with Night Demon anyway. So we're Night Demon and play, and we'd play. And we're all kind of like one big happy family. And I think kind of that's how that kind of took off. And we even talked about maybe doing some more music. And so we're working on some new music right now. And my dream is that we can come out with another album, because I still think Dark Parade, I think, was the best album we ever did, but I think we can make a heavier album than that.
I agree. And hearing you and hearing the energy in your voice, I'm not convinced that Cirith Ungol will not play more live. I'm not convinced at all. And I hope I'm correct, because you did play in Latin America this year, right?
Yeah, we did 5 shows. We played in Asuncion, Paraguay. We played in Santiago, Chile. We played in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Bogota, Colombia. It was amazing. The people in South America, we'd been in Brazil once before, but never been to the other countries. And, whenever you go somewhere new, it's kind of not scary, but it's different. You don't know what to expect. The people in South America were the kindest, most warmest people. It was an amazing experience. And I'll even have to single out when we played in Paraguay. It's a small country, and the promoters and the people down there said, hey, a lot of bands don't come to Paraguay. They go, to Brazil, or they go to Argentina. And they thanked us for coming there, and they treated us so well. And the club was so amazing. Absoluto Rock, that was the name of the club. And on one of the wall behind the bar, they had an artist come in and kind of draw and paint all our album covers.
Wow.
And on one of the other walls, they had Ronnie James Dio and Lemmy, from Motorhead up there. And it was just an amazing experience. It was really hot though up here. I'm in California and we're just getting over winter. We're in spring now, but when we were down there, it was their summer, and I think it was around 110 degrees on stage. So it's probably the warmest show that I've ever played. But it was so satisfying to see people, and people would come up and say, I've waited my whole life to meet you. And then I'd say, well, I've waited my whole life to meet you, because our dream was to go all around the world and travel. And matter of fact, over the years, we got fan mail and letters from people in a lot of these countries. And so to actually be able to go there and meet some of the people that have been fans of the band for decades was a life experience.
So that cannot end.
Well, I hope not. I hope not.
Perfect.
So what the plan is to go until the wheels fall off. And I was joking. I think 2 of my wheels have already fallen off, but so now maybe I'm a motorcycle or a bicycle.
I want to return a little bit about your drumming, but not what you think. The cowbell sounds awesome in Distant Shadows.
I love the cowbell. Matter of fact, we're working on new material, and I started hitting on the cowbell, and Tim's all like, "Oh my God." Uh, the joke was on the last couple of albums, the band goes, "Hey, look, you get to play the cowbell on one song," because they finally gave up for me not playing it at all. So I think they go, you can do it on one song. And on Dark Parade, I think I have two. There's two cowbell parts on there. I just love it. One of my favorite drummers was Parky Lang, which original drummer for Mountain.
Mhm.
Amazing guy. And he was one of my biggest influences. And he played, the cowbell, and some of my other favorite drummers use cowbell too. And I think if it's used in a certain way, you can get like a really good feeling out of it.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's a joke, more cowbell, the Saturday Night Live sketch, and everyone makes fun of it. The Blue Oyster Cult thing. I don't know if you remember, if you've ever seen that. It's Will Ferrell's up there hitting a cowbell, and I think Blue Oyster Cult's there on stage or something. But I don't know. I love it. And if we do another album, which I hope we do, I'm going to try to slip one in somewhere.
So why do you think the cowbell doesn't get much love in metal? What's the issue?
I don't know. But, a lot of big bands played it over the years. Uh,
Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know because I love it. It's like my gong. I love the gong. The joke is, if I was in control of the band over everything we did, there'd be a gong hit in every song, and it'd be cowbell in every song. So,
And am I right? You appeared as a guest in a Chevalier EP, and you played the
well,
gong there, right?
I actually recorded the gong. They're in Finland,
Right.
and we actually played in Helsinki and met the members there. Very nice people and great band. And they asked whether they could use a gong thing. And so Armand, our new guitarist, at his studio, I took my gong in there and we recorded like 10 different gong hits with it and sent it off to them, and they used it on their album. Hey, so we just played Def Forever birthday party in Hamburg, Germany, at a famous club there called Mark the Halle. It's kind of like a big uh, club, kind of like it's got a round ceiling, kind of like this, like an arch ceiling. Anyway, we played Def Forever's birthday party there, and we had a couple of days off. And so my wife and a friend of the band, we went up to the gong factory because I'm a Paiste cymbal artist, and I've had my gong since the 1970s. So we actually went to the gong factory and watched them hammering out the gongs, and they had like a 7-foot gong. Uh, and when you hit it, you feel like your
The
entire
vibration.
world changes. Yeah, it's amazing. You can feel the vibration through your body. I got a video of me hitting it. And I get on my hands and knees and I'm bowing in front of it, kind of like in a King Kong movie or something. But that was one of the most amazing things. And I always, that was the other thing. I was like, I want to get a bigger gong. And the guys in the band said, well, you're going to have to carry it because they weigh too much or something. And I have a 30-inch gong, but seeing the big, 7-foot gong, I would just, in my brain, I'm trying to think of like, if I could sell one of my kidneys on eBay so I could raise enough money to.
So you have two challenges now: more cowbell in the seventh Cirith Ungol album, and use the biggest gong you can afford. How about that?
Yeah, what's funny at the Gong Factory, they were making fun of me because they make all sorts of gongs. And if you saw how it just the work that they did is just it's just so amazing because it's all hand craftsmanship.
Really?
No
Well,
machinery at all, and they take a piece of metal and they just hammer it until it turns into this gong. And some of their gongs are tuned exactly to a certain note. They use them, some doctors use them for healing, and they use them in orchestras and symphonies and for all sorts of different reasons. I still like the big one. That's my favorite one. But yeah, it's the sound of it. It's just amazing. But they were kind of they said anything under, 36 inches, they called it like a little screamer or something like that. That was a name. And mine's only 30 inches. It's always seemed big to me. It's around this big. It's big for kind of like a cymbal. Uh,
oh my
but then
God.
getting back, then they point at there's the gong, the big one, and they were doing actually things where you could actually rub like a little stick or something on there and it would start humming.
The big ones, right? Because there is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, okay.
And after we're done, you send me an email or something. I'll send you some videos of it because it was amazing. Like I said, it was like that was like a life-changing experience. And since I'd been a Paiste artist pretty much my whole drumming career, to be able to actually go to the factory to see them make it was been a dream of mine. And so that's another dream that came true. Now I have to go to the cymbal factory in Switzerland so I can watch them, hammer out the cymbals.
So now it's irrelevant now with Cirith Ungol. I wonder how, since as you said, these are handcrafted, how do they make specific frequencies by that? It sounds a lot of work, right? To hit the exact frequency you want.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. The gentlemen that we met there, some of them, they came in as young kids and they end up, they're old men now making the gongs. They actually
Oh.
hammer on them and they work in teams and they're just experts. And they would show, they had like a thing where they could put a microphone up and they hear the tone, like say it's a C sharp or something. They take the gong down and the guy that knows what he's doing, he'd hammer on it and he'd put it up and then it would be the exact right tone. So,
Wow.
uh, it's beyond my understanding on how they do it, but it was, like I said, being able to visit that after our show in Hamburg was a dream come true.
The icing on
The
the
only
cake.
thing, the only dream that was more important to me was doing this interview with you here today.
Come on, man. Don't do that. You want to make me cry? No. I'm too old to cry for these things. Okay. So I don't know why, but I saw the cover artwork, like the Demon Slayer, and I was almost sure that the band has used that cover art in the past, but you haven't. I don't know why, and I'm not sure what's the question here. But how did you miss this cover artwork in previous albums?
Well, we didn't. And here's a story. Most of these covers back here, Frost and Fire, King of the Dead, One Foot in Hell, Paradise Lost, those were all on a series of books came out in the United States in the 80s by a company called Daw Books, DAW. And they were all Michael Moorcock's uh,
Books?
books about Elric. Elric, he's he's an albino superhero. Um, so we used all of those, and we've always been good friends with Michael Whalen. We loved all this stuff. And our dream was, when we put out our first album, is wow, we never thought we'd even get something like that on an album cover. But after our first album came out, the dream was, hey, if we put out other albums, we'd love to use all of his covers that he did on the book. Well, we ended up using all of them. And our album before Dark Parade, which was this one up here, Forever Black, that was a small study he did on canvas. Matter of fact, if you look at the album really close, you can see the canvas texture in the background. So it wasn't on the book cover. It was just kind of like a small little study that he did. And then Dark Parade was another one that they used in a over here. They used this one on a book. It was on a book too. I think Elric at the End of Time or something like that. So we were looking around, and we're talking to him, like what could we use? Well, back I think was around the same time, around 1984, something like that. Michael Whalen he was in Los Angeles for I'm going to say a Comic-Con because that's what people today would understand. But back then it was probably like a fantasy convention. So they had artists and they had authors. And, let's say you go meet, your favorite science fiction author or whatever. And since Michael Whalen was this prolific artist of all this science fiction and fantasy, he was there, selling posters and doing stuff like that, signing autographs. And so we went down there and met with them, and he actually came up and we were going to go out to dinner because our bass player at the time, Flynn, his parents owned a restaurant. So they came up from the show and he had with him this painting, which is Demon Slayer, and he wanted to show it to us. And he said, hey, this is my latest Elric painting. I want you to see it. So we actually held the painting in our hand and we're just marveling at it. Wow, this is just amazing. And so we set it on my parents' staircase because I was living at home at the time and our band room was upstairs. And so we laid it on the staircase, went out to dinner. And then we came back and, we said our goodbyes and he took the painting and left. So we have a history of kind of knowing about that painting. And what he did was he actually released a Michael Moorcock book and actually put that. I think it was a self-published book. It wasn't by another company. It's something he did on his own. And on the cover piece, that's the album. Matter of fact, I can grab it.
What story is that?
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh boy, what edition
The,
is that?
well, it's called it's the book The Vanishing Tower, and I think it's one that he
Wow.
did. It's one he did on his own,
Oh
but
my.
he made this painting and he put this kind of on the front cover of the book, and so
That's
that's
that
where
looks
this was. So I think we've used pretty much all of his Elric uh, illustrations. He has a couple other small ones that he's used, but they're probably not. They're just once again they're studies. Uh, but we're trying to talk him into doing another one for like another album. So
that so
that's
you have to. He has to. I mean, come on. You cannot have
well,
a Cirith
he's
Ungol.
we're very lucky to be associated with the gentleman because he's considered, I think, one of the best fantasy artists in the world in our lifetime. And to actually have his paintings grace the covers of our albums is pretty amazing. It's extraordinary, and I can't even thank him enough. When we first finished our album, we were looking for a cover. We were thinking about something by Frank Frazetta,
Hmm.
and it was a painting called Berserker.
Yeah.
And about that same time, Greg walks in and he had a Molly Hatchet album with the cover on there. And so we're
Yes.
like, wow, there's that thing. But he was reading at the time Starbringer by Michael Moorcock, which had once again this painting on there. And I was looking at it and I go, man, this is as good, if not better than that. I go, this would make the best album cover in the history of like rock music, right? And so we wrote his publisher a letter. They sent it on to him. He got back with us, and our friendship sprung from there. And we were the first band ever to use any of his artwork ever on an album. And he's, Sepultura. A lot of other bands have used his artwork, but we're very proud of our association. And I'll tell you one more story. He was having a show down in Los Angeles, and Tim and I went down there, and they actually had the painting Stormbringer. And when we did the album, I told him, I said, hey, if our band gets really big, I want to buy that off you because it was so amazing. He had that painting there, and it just it defies description. If you look at it, it's so detailed, it's so beautiful. The color just jumps out at you. Matter of fact, at one point, Tim came over and said, how does any human being do this? How what kind of talent does it take to actually paint these paintings? And like I said, if you look at something, all these, they're kind of printed on paper. You get to actually look at the original piece and you see the brush strokes and you see the color that's glowing. And I was always kind of like a frustrated artist. And I remember a lot of my paintings, everything in a mud brown, and all of these things, the color looks like there's light shining through the back of the painting at you. It's just, and I would encourage anyone, if you ever get a chance in your life to go see any of his work. The thing we went to was a collection album, which was a really rare experience. But if you ever get to see any of his artwork, go do it because it's like going to see the Mona Lisa or something.
Wow. I was honestly, I want to buy some of his reprints, especially, have those kind of associate because they are associated with metal with Cirith Ungol. So I want to buy 3 of reprints. I have no idea how good are they, but
Yeah,
I
no, yeah, he has a website. You can go
mm,
to it.
absolutely.
Yeah, Nate. I have a couple of prints myself, and they're extraordinary.
Okay, I'm sold. um, so at what because we mentioned that a couple of times right now about the band writing new music. Is there something that you would like to share? I mean, should I say in what state you are? Have you demoed entire songs? Where are you at?
But we're really near the beginning.
Okay.
But I will tell you this: we had two really good practices, and we came up with almost two complete songs from that.
Hmm.
And that's like amazing because we were arguing over, you know, the band, we argue, other bands argue who maybe they argue over girlfriends or whatever, but we always argue over songs, like what songs are we going to leave out of the set list, and I'm always fighting, I want to do Chaos to Sins. And they're like, well, that's too long. Or, Blood and Iron. And they go, well, we're already doing Legions Arise. And it sounds just like that. Or so we do a lot of that kind of stuff. And after this last set of shows, the thing was, Tim's all like, why put out another record if we can't play it, And I'm all like, well, because we're musicians and we got to keep creating. I mean, that's the first thing when the band first got back together, the first time we had a little band room, 2015, 2016, the first thing we did is start working on new material. If you're an artist, you start painting. If you're a writer, you start writing like yourself. If you're a musician, you start creating music. And I only know 3 drum beats, and my goal is to have at least 5 drum beats before the end of my career. So that's why I want to work on some new songs. So
You said something else now that's, to me, it's very important. We use that term legendary for many bands. I think we are overusing that term. And some of those bands have stopped writing music, but they're still playing live. To my mind, they have become performers, because an artist needs to write new music and play it live, right? You agree with that?
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think a lot of bands, and go back to one of my favorite bands like Blue Oyster Cult, they put out so many albums, and they stayed together, and all the albums are good if you listen to them. I think the problem is a lot of bands, because they kept going on for such a long period of time. I'm not saying they got tired, but it's like it became a chore just to put one album out after another. And once again, I'm not being derogatory, because that's what's funny. A lot of bands, albums I never heard, like someone say, wow, did you hear this band's album? And I go, wow, I didn't know they had an album past the first 3 that I had. And this is maybe their 12th or 15th album I listened to, and I go, wow, that's fantastic. But I think what happened with us, we had such a big break in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Like we kind of broke up in 91. We got back around 2015, 2016. I keep saying those 2 dates because I think it was right around the end of 2015 that we kind of got back together. And I think we had a bunch of fresh, we were hungry for some new material. And I'm always pushing the band. I want everything we do to be heavier and more powerful and louder, more cowbell.
Yeah, and a little bit bigger congs.
Yeah. And well, listen, and once again, I can't judge any other band because I think people, everyone has their own personal taste. But what I feel about our band is I think when Forever Black came out, I go, wow, this is the best thing we've done. And people said, oh, no, King of the Dead's the best thing you did. And I said, no, no. In my mind, and I helped write, I played on King of the Dead. This new album, Forever Black, is better. And the goal then was, hey, let's make something even better than Forever Black. And Dark Parade came out. And, whether you like our band or not, if you sit down and listen to Dark Parade, some amazing riffs, really good solos, the singing, the drums, everything came out really good, I think. And so I'm thinking, hey, we can improve upon that. And that's a human condition. No matter what you're doing, you always want to do a better version of it.
Well, not for everyone, Rob. Anyhow, I don't
Well,
think
like my hair, every interview, I'd like to get a better hairdo.
that's your um, okay. So, any lives in 2025? Any live dates in 2025? I know that the band has said, but we are trying to change that.
Well, you know what? There are some rumors that we're going to do some shows, and I can't really announce anything right now because they're just rumors. But yeah, I don't think we're done yet.
At least,
And
can you tell me what side of the Atlantic?
well, I'll play anywhere anyone wants to see us.
Oh,
So
what a
and we
diplomatic
have a lot.
answer.
We have a lot of friends all over the world, and we got to play Australia, we got to play South America recently. But let's be honest, the majority of our fans are still on the European continent, and I'm not discounting the United States because there's a lot of fans of ours here. My joke is we could fill the LA Coliseum in Los Angeles, but every seat would be taken by a person from a different city in the United States.
That's
So
true.
if you could get all our fans together in one place, it would be an enormous concert. The problem is, everyone's all spread out, and I
Yeah,
think in
that's
Europe it's geographically smaller.
correct.
Because if let's say if you live in London, you can fly to Paris and be there in an hour or a couple hours or something. When you're in Los Angeles, you fly to Paris, it takes like 2 or 3 years off your life.
Oh yeah, I agree. So if you hear anything, any new rumors about Cirith Ungol play live, please do share.
Well, I want to. I want to.
Perfect, perfect. Do you have anything else working on aside from Cirith Ungol? Any, I don't know, projects,
Well,
side projects?
I just I just want everyone to check out this new album and also go back and check out Dark Parade because this album was actually a celebration, an album release party for Dark Parade. And I'm glad we did it. And I think it's still pretty amazing because of the professional video, like I said, the only one we've ever had in our history. Uh, but I still think, if you go listen to the studio albums, you're going to hear, wear headphones or something. And you hear some stuff going on in the background that you may have never heard before. And it's kind of like I like watching old science fiction movies. Sometimes I'll watch them for the 100th time and I'll notice something that happens in a scene that I never noticed before. And I think that's how music is. Uh, but getting back to our band, last year something really cool happened. Um, uh, not, not well. Anyway, a show on Peacock. They used Frost and Fire uh, in the opening show in the series, and right now it's slipping my mind, so I'm embarrassed. But
No, now I feel embarrassed because I know what you're talking about because I remember hearing the song and I saying, "Damn, Cirith Ungol," but I don't remember either. Okay.
well, the Evil Dead series of movies.
Oh, maybe,
Did you
maybe.
did you ever see any of those movies? Or
Evil Dead, of course.
okay, well, Bruce Campbell, who's the lead actor in all those movies, he's the star in this series on Peacock, and it's a whole series on kind of like the satanic panic of the 70s and 80s.
I don't
And it's
remember the
a
title, but I've seen the show.
Yeah, and what's amazing is because I'm watching it, with my friends and stuff, and all of a sudden they start playing Frost and Fire, and we get all excited. And it's a really good part of the show too. The guys in a band and are not very successful, and so they thought if we act like we're a satanic band, maybe more people get interested. And a lot of the guys at school were all like, "Oh, this is kind of creepy and evil. We like you now, right?" And so his parents find a poster for a concert, and it's got like a pentagram on there. And the parents are all like, really like, you're not doing this. And the mom goes, "You lied to us. You're never playing guitar again, and you can't go play a concert tonight." And the kid basically goes, fuck it. His mom leaves the room. He grabs his guitar. He gets on his bicycle, and they start playing our song "Frost and Fire." And it was just a pretty uh, incredible thing for our band to have. And people are calling me up saying, "Hey, I just saw your band on the
Hysteria,
Peacock channel." Yeah.
Hysteria, right?
Yes.
Hysteria. Good. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, no. Why apologize? I mean, these things slip our minds usually. But yeah, what you described remind me of my childhood, right? When people, when our parents were looking at the cover albums and said, "What? This is satanic, right? Why do you listen to these things?" And we had back in Greece in the 90s, we had our own satanic panic, and it was crazy, crazy, crazy.
Well, it's probably going on again to this day, or maybe it never stopped. But most of our music, and I think this is what's kind of cool about us. We have these two sides to the band's personality. One half is kind of like the sword and sorcery, like Frost and Fire, Frostmourne Stream, songs like that. And then the other half we've been leaning towards lately is more like our doomier side.
Mm.
But one of the first songs that the band came out with, which was on Metal Massacre 1, Brian Slagle's first album he ever put out on Metal Blade Records. Metallica's on there, a Rat, a Bitch, Pandemonium, Omen, a bunch of bands like that. that was a doomy song, and I wrote the lyrics for that. It was about the when the sun burns out, at the end of the sun, we all get fried on Earth, because as a star burns out, it gets really hot, and stuff like that. So that was kind of my premise for that song. So we have experience going back to the beginning of our career writing like what you would consider today doom metal.
Oh, there are
But
strong doom metal layers in the Cirith Ungol, of course.
yeah, well, like I said, though, it goes back to some of our most original material. So it's not something we just picked up on recently. Me and Tim were doing an interview, and someone said we were the godfathers or grandfathers of doom metal. And I'm not sure if that's true at all, but that's what someone said. But anyways, the world kind of spirals out of control. You got the climate crisis, you got everything that's going on around the world. Our songs kind of like are doomy. They're dark because that's what we're a reflection of what's happening on Earth.
Yeah, yeah.
I was watching a show the other night. Johnny Cash, a big country western guy, was funny. Almost half of every backstage rooms that we were at, no matter where they are, we're in South America, we're in Oklahoma, we're in like Europe. They'll have a picture of Johnny Cash on the wall. He actually kind of grew up, or not grew up, but lived near where I am right now here in California. And but he had a song "Man in Black," and the whole thing, he wished he could dress like a rainbow. And I mean, that's the thing. I wish we could write songs about, flowers and like dolphins jumping over the sunset or something like that. But if you go outside, that's not what's happening. You see like pain and suffering and war and misery and starvation. And so also too, since that's a growth industry, the world's collapsing, we have more material to write about. So that's what makes it.
It's interesting that you say that, because at the same time, we like to listen to this music and go to concerts to escape this grim reality. However, we do like to hearing these songs even in concert. How bizarre is that, right?
Well, if you listen to a lot of Tim's lyrics, he fancies himself like Jim Morrison, like a poet, and he does some really good work. The lyrics are really deep, and we're all hoping for a better tomorrow. I mean, that's once again, that goes back to the human condition. We're always striving for something better. We always would like to do something to improve upon ourselves, our family, or the world, right? And I think maybe our songs are more like a cautionary tale of what's to come. If AI takes over and the Terminator comes and gets us or something.
AI, okay. I won't open that can of worms because it will take forever. But Rob, thank you very much for your time. Such a pleasure. I mean, we've been talking for more than 40 minutes, and it feels like we just started. It's a pleasure, truly a pleasure to talk to you. And hopefully we will see Cirith Ungol in Chicago, or you may make us cross the Atlantic to see you guys in Europe, whatever works.
Well, thank you, and thank everyone at Metalkaoz. And I love Chicago. We played at, I'm trying to think of the name of the club we played at there, Reggie's.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing club. And we walked down the street, and there's the deep dish Chicago pizza, Illuminati's.
I had no idea. Sorry.
Well, anyway, but it was right down the street, maybe like a half a mile or something. They had the really deep dish thick pizza. And we were joking about, I have a joke about that too, because I think the guy's name was Lou Minotti's. But, but the guys like the alien guys that take over the world are the Illuminati's,
Yeah.
And so, we're talking amongst the band, and then they said something to me like, we're going to Illuminati's. And I go, isn't that some secret society or something? And they go, no, it's a pizza place down the street. So, but anyway, it was really good.
It's the secret society is hidden inside the pizzeria.
Yeah, but I hope we could come back to Chicago. It's a beautiful city. A lot of people there. And it's funny, we were a block from the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And we never went over that far to see it. And so a lot of places, I'm watching a show right now in Brisbane, Australia on Netflix or something, and there's a whole ocean there. And I'm like, we were right next to like an ocean, like the Indian Ocean or something, and we were a block away, and I never got to see it. So if I come back to Chicago, I have to see the lake. So,
You have to see me first. I'm just
okay. Well, you'll take us to the lake.
absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Have a great rest of your day, and please keep writing music. And we are excited to hear the seventh Cirith Ungol album.
Hey, well, thank you for everything. And I want to invite everyone to go listen to the new album live at the Roxy.
Oh yeah, especially the album part, the first part. I mean, it sounds amazing. I shouldn't say that, but I will. It's almost sounds better than the studio version because there is this energy from the live aspect of it.
Well, there's cowbell on there.
Oh yeah, don't forget about the cowbell. Thank you, Rob.
Okay.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.